Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're officially going live. Oh, and I can't. Okay. Okay. We are live. Welcome back to the O Show, everything crypto and NFTs every day. I'm your host with the most, WendyO, and we have a jammed pack panel today. Sorry, you guys, I'm still waking up. So this morning I woke up a little bit early and I was like an hour early to everything in life, which is kind of ridiculous. So I was like ready to go live and it was like 9 a.m. I'm like, what am I doing? So I had to finally deal with some of my Gala node stuff. So I did that, but we have a great panel today. I want everybody to go around and introduce themselves really quickly. And then we're going to get into the news. We're going to talk about the debt ceiling. We're going to talk about, we're also going to talk about XRP and Ripple because there's some exciting revelations with that and everybody loves those. And then, yeah, we're going to just talk about things and I will take a look at Bitcoin, but there's really kind of nothing to see. But anyways, Melinda, go ahead and introduce yourself. And then I am George, which I love that name. Cryptosrus, and then Miss Janey Park. So if you guys want to go around the panel really quick and we'll get straight into the news.
Yeah. So hi guys, my name is Melina, face behind Girl in the Verse. I'm mostly known for creating Web3 content, really fun and engaging. And I like to say, I'm the dumber version of WendyO.
Oh no.
No, in all seriousness, I tend to dumb it down even further because my goal is to get my girlfriends to care about this stuff and they still don't. So how do we do it? We have to dumb it and dumb it and dumb it down some more. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then Mr. I Am George, I'm going to call you I Am George because I think it's really, really funny.
Thanks for having me. First time on the show. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. I run Cryptosrus, been in space for a while, talk about a lot of stuff that you talk about, cover the news, and I'm always bullish.
Woo! George is always bullish. George is our perma bull on the show. I am
Yes.
going to be I'm not a perma bear. They call me Wendy Bear sometimes. And then Miss Janey, go ahead and just give yourself a quick intro. And then we will go ahead and talk about the first news story because there's some important things happening.
Hey, GM. My name is Janey Park, otherwise known as Jumpstart Janey on Web2, Web3 socials. First of all, I just want to say, Wendy, thank you for having us on. I am excited. I was able to interview you on my own show and got to ask you about digital fashion, which is, I think, a take that people don't normally hear Wendy talk about. But just very briefly, I am a Web3 content creator as well. I cover fashion, Web3, and specifically digital fashion and connecting that to marketing. I also have this show called Fresh on the Blockchain, which is the intersection of fashion, tech, and culture on Rug Radio. And my day job is actually working for a digital fashion house in marketing and growth called The Fabricant.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and I'm just going to do a quick Bitcoin market update because we need to see it. You guys, I didn't know if we were going to break up above this area of 26.5, but we sure as heck did. It looks like we got that swing look low to approximately 25.8 and the market said we're going to continue to go up. So let's hope that we're able to consolidate over the weekend to about 26.5 to about 20 or 27.5 as well, about $1,000 range. There are some people that are extremely bullish. I know Mr. George is one of those, but I'm still not advising, but recommending that you guys consider taking profits heavily right now and just be really, really cautious just in case. That's all I have to say about that with Bitcoin. I'm going to take a look at the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart is looking pretty decent and bullish. So just as long as we continue to close above this $26.5 area. But this is kind of the breaking story of the day everybody's excited about. Breaking. Bank of Russia has already been linked to Ripple and XRP. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to take a look at the notes from our amazing producer, Mr. Mixing, but apparently Twitter has uncovered a potential finance tie between XRP and Russia. Crypto Twitter is always like investigating and finding things out. Apparently in a video, they showed Russian document that showed Ripple XRP has been working with Russia since 2013. This is no surprise to me because Ripple is supposed to be intermediary or the financial intermediary, like a SWIFT or the whatever for cross-border payments. Evidence shows a connection between R and XRP, but offers little insight into whether R has utilized crypto to evade the S word. And it doesn't show how active their involvement has been since the sanctions are opposed. In 2018, it says that the bank's innovative laboratory conducted research on testing the possibility of cross-border settlements using Ripple. And it says the system technology assumed that the settlement participants had special accounts opened in the national payment systems and addresses in the Ripple network. The document also says the most significant Russian project based on blockchain is the master chain decentralized network exchange and storage of information. George, I kind of want to toss this over to you. First, are you an XRP person?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
like to say that I have the most educational XRP video known in existence. So there's that. And also I do support Ripple and in their fight against the SEC. I think that's very important. But as for XRP itself, not so much.
Okay. So what is your take on this potential story?
It does not surprise me. I mean, let's keep this in check. I mean, citizens of Russia, right? Like as much as we have this narrative, like Russia itself, it's bad, this war, everything, right? The citizens of Russia, you know what? They're just as curious as everyone else around the world, right? They love to get involved with XRP, and of course you have businesses and institutions that do want to adopt the newer technologies from Web3 as well, right? But it does not surprise me to hear about banks and certain institutions using XRP, because that's what it was created for, to be a bridge currencies between countries and to get off the USD standard and use XRP as a bridge currency. So, I mean, it does not surprise me. So that's kind of my view.
I share my sentiment with you. I'm very much in support of almost any crypto company that is going against the SEC or vice versa, because I do believe that there needs to be a separate entity that does somewhat regulate crypto assets. I don't think the CFTC or the SEC is competent enough to do so themselves. I feel like it needs to be a group of people from the SEC, the CFTC, and Hester Peirce needs to lead it. She's my favorite person to lead because she's already created comprehensive kind of some sort of regulation with the Safety Harbor Act. But yeah, I support you in that. I'm like, Janey, give us your thoughts. Sorry, I'm like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you guys covered a lot of great points, but I mean, I think to the point of, what XRP was actually created for and how it can continue on. I think, I just saw news about Hong Kong and the regulation that's changing there as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that the whole basis of what, crypto and digital assets is supposed to do is decentralization and offer transparency. And I think that when that's being challenged, it really is an issue. But I mean, how do you make that regulation global and streamlined? It really depends on the geopolitical situation in each country.
Kind of touching back on the whole Hong Kong thing, I really feel like they played like 4D chess with us. I also feel like China's playing 4D chess with everyone. I feel like China was like completely fudding and was like, just being contradictory to everything that they were doing. And I understand like the metaverse that they have and a lot of the blockchains that they're excited about are government owned, and there's going to be a lot of centralization there, a lot of censorship. But at the same time, what is the US doing that's really good as far as that? Melina, give us your thoughts on this whole the whole XRP thing, or if you want to kind of talk about what happened with Hong Kong, because I think that that's important as well. And I believe they identified 16 crypto assets that are legal to trade, which that's fantastic because that gives guidelines what we can and can't do.
Yeah, I mean, just back on, to everyone's point here, I think it's just going to depend what happens and how we choose to look at decentralization. Like I like for 2 years now, we're here saying we want to be decentralized, and then we have the governments that get involved. And now it almost seems like, oh my God, now Russia's coming. Then what does that mean for the US, right? And why can't we just all collectively, embrace these coins? Or, it almost seems like we're sort of fudding the Russians, but we're almost doing the kind of the same thing. And so anyways, I'm just here saying, let's see what happens. But yeah, I'm curious to see if XRP really is a Russian, if it's some Russian thing going on, or if it's just, the US just claiming other things. We'll just see what happens. But I'm up for, I look at all these countries who are adopting crypto, and we're seeing, like I always have people, telling me like, oh, El Salvador this, but I just think we need to go back to why these countries are choosing these options now. Mm-hmm. And, we've just been lucky in North America. That's all I'm going to say. We've just been lucky.
Well, one thing that I will say is I do think that just because there's a lot of drama that's going on in the Eastern European world, I do think that just because somebody happened to be born somewhere doesn't mean that they align with the ideology that their leaders are pushing. So I do believe that everybody does have access. Well, I see I'm a little bit biased. I believe that like 99% of people do have access to their own money and whatnot. But I do want to talk about this next story because it's another XRP story. And I'm sure that our good friend of the channel, BitBoy, who is also my co-host on our podcast, Frenemies Forever show. Make sure you guys go watch that. But this next story is really interesting because it's from his set. Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank mentions XRP as international payment medium. So the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta recently called attention to Ripple's business model and how the company uses XRP to meet cross-border settlement needs. It is in the Reserve Bank says XRP is seen as international payment medium, and they mentioned in the latest Policy Hub iteration from Atlanta Fed titled An Introduction to Web3 with Implications for Financial Services. The report highlights the growing adoption rate of Web3 blockchain among public institutions, central banks. It discusses Project Melina, a proof of concept introduced by the Bank for International Settlements, the Bank of France, and others. Project Melina is the facilitation of more efficient cross-border settlements. The article mentions Ripple and Stellar as two notable blockchain companies focused on the cost-effective value transfers. It says Ripple's business model involves provision of financial services with the use of XRP, and that it is roughly envisioned as an international payment medium or wholesale settlement coin. But it doesn't indicate that Atlanta Fed plans to use XRP for settlements. This is very interesting. It's interesting to me because Ripple is currently under attack by the SEC. So the fact that a state is interested in this technology, but also mentions XLM, possibly as a backup, is interesting to me because I'm curious to see if the states are going to be able to overcome the federal guidelines and kind of do what they want to do. We've seen the folks over in Florida be very adamant about not a CBD, or they don't want a CBDC, which I don't care if you like DeSantis or not. I like that he said that because I don't want a CBDC. But George, give us your thoughts on this story.
I'd just like to say that I'm a big XRP guy. That's why I have this. Just found that on the floor, by the way. But something else I want to make note is this Hong Kong news. I know you skipped past that, but XRP is not listed as one of the currencies they can buy. Yep. I wonder why. But as for
is George throwing shots? Are you throwing jabs, George?
No, I'm a big supporter. No, yeah, you know what, Stellar. You guys know the story about Stellar, right? John Michaela started XRP and then he moved to Stellar. So if the SEC is going to go after Ripple, they're going to go after Stellar. I mean, it's basically identical. So I would not be surprised they sue Stellar right after the Ripple case. But I do think Ripple is going to win. So maybe that sways them from not doing that. But as for XRP, yeah, I mean, I agree. It was created for banks. Some people will say it's a banker's coin. It was created for that reason. And Ripple's structure is to sell XRP to financial institutions to use as a bridge currency, right? But inherently, that's why I don't like the model, because Ripple's business model is to sell XRP. They own more than 51% of the supply, and they sell it to banks and institutions that may want to use it to transfer money from countries or institutions, right? But let's not forget that they were created for this reason. So if they are used for this reason, that's great. But there are inherently some centralization issues with Ripple, especially since they own more than 51% of the supply.
I can tend to agree with you on that point. Janey, talk to us a little bit about this rumor. And I guess I kind of want to segue into states versus federal, because that's also a very interesting battle that we're going to see. And I feel like the United States is run or governed a lot differently than a lot of other places. And maybe it's because we're so large. Like when I recently traveled to Europe, I was in Estonia, and then, there was talk about the EU and MiCA and all that stuff. I feel like Europe is like a big United States, but they're not states, they're countries. I know that might sound silly, but that's the way I was able to kind of rationalize it, because they've got like the EU and those types of laws. But talk to us a little bit about that. What are your thoughts when you hear that a state Federal Reserve Bank wants to utilize a crypto asset that is currently under scrutiny by a federal agency. And I hope I said that correctly because it's a lot of parts.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was writing in our chat group, like I just did 10 years in Asia. So I was in Hong Kong, China, Macau, and South Korea. So it's kind of in the Hong Kong during the time of the protests and the pandemic. So
we have to say panorama.
Panorama. Okay. I come with a perspective in terms of, being a Korean American, but at the same time being in third culture and seeing how other governments are run, especially in, challenging geopolitical situations. But I think when it comes to, what you just said, right, state versus federal, how they operate, it's tied, but then it's not tied as well. I mean, there are loopholes in, certain regulations and how they're actually, navigating. But I mean, I feel like it can get very dicey, but until there is a point, where there's regulation that stops them, I mean, if they can continue pushing on, I just don't think that there's an issue if it's not illegal or, they're going to get in trouble for it. But I guess it's kind of one of those things where I'm not a regulator, but also I'm one of those people that will do something and I'll apologize for it afterwards, as long as, I'm not going to have ramifications based on that.
Quick question for you before we send it over to Melina. So when you were spending your time over in Hong Kong, what was and I know it was a little bit of a different climate due to some of the stuff, but what was your take on crypto assets in that regards as compared to the United States of America? Because again, like when you go to a different country or sometimes even a different state, things are completely different, like the way the social norms and the culture and all of that type of stuff.
So I'll be very straight up. I mean, I taught myself how to invest in stocks during the pandemic in 2020. And I taught myself about, crypto and NFTs and other digital assets in 2022 when I returned to the US. But that being said, I have a lot of friends who are in the industry in Hong Kong and also in China and Taiwan. And I think the perspective of how they're navigating is very different. I won't name names, but I know someone who is based in China, but they're also looking to see whether or not they can move their operations either to Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Singapore, just because, again, you don't know what the regulation is going to be like. And at the end of the day, China will do what they do. And if you look at, just even the government laws or, what they call extradition, for those of you who may not know, like literally the government can seize anyone from anywhere around the world and take them back into China without a warrant or anything like that. So you actually don't know what's going to happen. So that's why when you're in a country and a system like that or other parts of the world, the way that you are protected by law and the government is very different. But I think that a lot of people who have dual citizenship or even multiple citizenship, like British or UK or Canada, utilize those passports to be able to do so or use other third parties because they're worried about getting tracked for, all these transactions, especially when you're talking about the blockchain. It's traceable, it's transparent. Even though we're talking about cross-border into countries like China is just a totally different game.
Yeah, no, I have a friend. He's a VC, a good friend of mine, and he's based out of China. So it's very interesting hearing the difference of opinions and whatnot. He's like, yeah, they're so bullish on crypto here, and I'm like, are they really though? Are you just saying that? But I'm also looking into dual citizenship of Italy because I have Sicilian Italian origins, and apparently, if you were born or if you have a birth certificate of a family member that was born there, you can get dual citizenship. So I'm currently looking into that. But if I was to relocate, it honestly would probably be to either to Mexico or to El Salvador. And I know that people are like, but I really, my daughter's Mexican, so I think it might be kind of cool for her. I don't know. But anyways, Melina, please give us your thoughts on this, everything that we just said. I don't have a specific question. Sorry.
Yes. So I was going to say, I'm from Canada. And so it's been so interesting.
Ooh, talk to us about what's going on in Canada, because in Canada, you guys are like banning all the exchanges.
We're done. You're removed. I have to leave. Yeah, exactly.
Talk to us about that. And then XRP, all of it, please.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, ever since Binance announced that they were getting the hell out of here. It's putting a lot, in retrospect, even for myself, because when I go to the US and I'm seeing all these people, obviously it's crypto events, right? So I always put in the back of my mind that we're still the minority, right? Like I think if you ask your friends or your uncle or your grandmother, nobody cares about crypto right now. But in Canada, it's just been so apparent that kind of leading into what China's doing already. It's just that, it's different and Trudeau looks cute, So
That's not my, I'm like, that's not my type, but go ahead.
But a lot of people say that, right? A lot of people like Justin Trudeau is super cute, right? Like
so is Gavin Newsom, but he's an absolute scumbag, and I will say it with my chest. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I will say, when I heard Ron DeSantis this week over on Twitter, it got my head spinning because I was thinking, why is nobody in Canada talking about this? And that moment is more so. It's not so much about the election. It's him choosing the platform where he felt like he was able to speak his mind. And it just got me thinking so heavily about this idea of freedom that we have in North America. Of course, I follow you, Wendy. And all these talks about, all this freedom that we have, but do we really? And now we're seeing these governments, mandate things and decide things. And, a bit to your point before between the states and the federal, well, our federal just said it and none of our provinces did anything. So I'm just here thinking that in the end, maybe the federal does have the upper hand over our country, but I am curious to see what happens. And I'm also thinking of this, this relocation. I, Wendy, am also Sicilian, but I don't know if Europe is the better play right now. I'm not so sure.
I want to be with my people. I've got to be with my people. So let's segue into this next story. Okay, so we all, George, are you American or are you somewhere else?
Yeah, American.
Okay, well, I don't know. I have to ask because sometimes we're American and then we go away because it's cuckoo over here. But let's talk about this. There's a rumor on crypto Twitter, of course, because it's crypto Twitter. Why wouldn't there be some sort of stupid rumor? But apparently there's rumors circulating on Twitter today that the debt ceiling deal is done. The source says there will be an increase in defense spending of roughly 3% as part of the deal. So we all know that the United States of America is not going to default because we love living in debt. We love spending money printer go, and then all kinds of other ridiculous things. But I want to get kind of everybody's take on this about the debt ceiling. I think it's been done 67 times prior to them doing it again. And I know that we're super close to election season, so they're not going to let us default. It wouldn't make sense because then this particular party will definitely not get put back in office. But when is enough at this point? George, talk to us.
I like to know the answer to that question too, because it seemed like after COVID, all rules just got thrown out the window. Like we got so used to, as a government, just printing whatever we want. We used COVID as an excuse, and now we're post-COVID. It's so irresponsible. And I always make this example on my show. It's like, imagine as a normal person, you have a credit card and you have a limit on that credit card, whatever it may be, $20,000, right? And say every single month you come up to that limit and you ask the credit card company, hey, I need a little more money. Give me 22, 25, 27.
And don't charge me any interest, George. You forgot that part.
Yeah, that's exactly what the debt ceiling is. We just raised the imposed limit that we put on ourselves, right? And the reason why we can do this and keep paying is because we have this money printer that we can spin up anytime. And it's so irresponsible the way everything is structured. And eventually it's going to lead to the collapse of the dollar and of the economy in the United States. It's not going to be anytime soon, but it's a house of cards waiting to collapse, which is why I'm in Bitcoin and which is why most people watching are in Bitcoin, because that's why it was created, because 2008 was bad, but everything has gone to exponentially gotten much worse. People just don't realize it, but it's much worse now than 2008.
So if all the listeners watching, please make sure like, comment, subscribe, set alerts, and also share this, push it out, because this is pretty good information. But if any of you guys have credit card debt, please don't feel stressed out about it, but figure out how to start paying that down and figure out how to get out of the situation that you're in. Because I personally feel like they're going to wipe out all the government debt, institute a CBD, CUBI, all that stuff, but they're going to make you still pay your debt. We've kind of seen that with student loans and whatnot. So go listen to Dave Ramsey. I don't care what you need to do. Go to your church, go to whoever you need to, but figure out how to kind of minimize some of that, because that credit card debt is not good unless you're a business owner, in my opinion, and you know how to leverage that debt properly. But just racking up debt, because unfortunately some Americans do have to use a credit card to buy food or, pay for their cell phone bills because times are rough right now. Try not to get too caught up in that and figure out have a plan, at least how you plan on paying that off, because you don't want to have a terrible quality of life. It sucks. I had credit card debt very early on because I was a stupid person, but I figured it out. I know you can too. But Janey, give us your thoughts on this topic and the debt ceiling, because actually maybe compare your experience in Hong Kong to the United States in regards to country debt. I don't know if that's a well-worded question, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I'm not as well versed in the Hong Kong debt situation.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
Maybe, about that.
I was shooting my shot there.
If I prep, then I can definitely answer this, but I don't want to give false information because I don't think that's a good thing to do. But I think, with the debt ceiling and just continuing to raise it, I think, I am George. I'm going to call you that too. I like that name. Mention the word irresponsible. And I think that, just merely, increasing that, the debt ceiling and actually being able to print and to spend more money doesn't solve any of the systemic or the issues at hand. It really impacts consumers, whether or not you're trying to get loans or there's interest or things like that. It doesn't really actually put systems and programs in place to help people. I feel like it's a very much so an easy way out because, the greater problems are ingrained and there's a lot of roots to them, which would mean, fixing a lot of the regulation that's already in place or, going back on some of the regulation to do reforms. It just ends up becoming very messy. So I feel like it's very much so the easy way out and the irresponsible easy way out that impacts really everyone, especially those who are more in the consumer level. But we don't necessarily have the power or the governance to actually change it. It's, the people who are in office.
Melina, give us your thoughts as a Canadian on the debt in the United States, and maybe if you guys are having that same problem over in Canada, because I feel like y'all might have some similar issues.
We definitely are. I think printing, it just seems so easy now to print money. Our Canadian dollar is so low. It's almost embarrassing. I don't know what it's going to take, back to what George was saying, we talked a lot about COVID, then wanted to prevent COVID. Now all these findings were, everything's coming out that this was all like some BS hoax kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Just be careful the verbiage you use because YouTube,
Yes, for sure.
Like it.
And so everything that's going on, we just keep printing money, but there's it just doesn't seem to end. So the same is true in Canada. Then we keep saying everything's okay, when I'm expecting a lot of people to lose their jobs in Canada, but that's not that's not what we're talking about. We're just saying everything is good. We've got it under control. We've got, I think, 20,000 nurses who just left. They are tired, right?
Well,
and so
I could talk about, because I worked in infectious disease, HIV/AIDS for 7 years prior to being a crypto person. And I can go off about that, but we won't do that on this show because makes me very upset, but go on.
Yes. So, to this point of, I don't know what it's going to take, but the other thing too is, we are entering an election year, but we just keep talking about post the C word, post, but it's over, I just want us to move on, and we can't move on. So I'm just not sure, I see there are like everyone on every storefront right now, it says we are hiring. That's what's happening right now in Canada. I don't know what it is in the US. I have a feeling it's slightly similar.
So we're at least, and I think George and Janey could probably comment on this. Like in LA, they're hiring everywhere, but they're hiring for very low level jobs. And it's not even enough to cover like basic living expenses. Like here, I think an average mortgage payment is like in LA County is probably close to $5,000. And I'm not even joking. And this is if you live in the hood, and then like I saw a sign at Del Taco, because I got some Del Taco chicken tacos the other day, because I'm trying to do keto. But they're starting pay is like $17, but even $17 isn't even enough to rent like a 1 bedroom or a studio. Like I think average rent is like $2,000. So yeah, I think that's what it is though. But George and Jeannie, did you guys want to comment on that at all? You guys seeing the same thing or?
Yeah, I'll just say something real quick. I mean, in the US and everywhere else, we're looking at the rate hikes, right, from Powell. And if it's not from Powell, other central banks are doing the same thing to try to curb inflation. But none of them talks about inflation is caused by the money printing. They all talk about and blame it on supply chain, and they blame it on the war, and they blame it on whatever else. Not one of them came out and said, oh, maybe it's due to how much money that we have printed. I just want to stress that because it's counterintuitive when we're raising the debt ceiling and then we have to print more money, and then Powell has to keep the rates elevated or higher to battle it. They're not on the same page. But because of all the rate hikes, then you start seeing jobs not being able to get loans that they need, and then they start laying people off. And to your point, Wendy, the higher paying jobs, they are firing. I know a lot of people, white collar people that are making good salaries, they have all lost their jobs. But the reason why in the US our unemployment is still low is because the blue collar jobs, the lower paying jobs, they're all still looking. And it's true where I am. You see like retailers and restaurants, they're hiring. And that's somehow compensating for the white collar losses, right? And it's not really the same type of job, it's not the same paying, but overall, this is what our government has to do to try to curb inflation, is to make everyone poorer so they stop spending money. And they think that's going to resolve things, but it's really not. It's making things worse.
The only thing I want to add on to your point, George, is also too with a lot of these public, I call them public servants, with a lot of these public servant reports, they use certain data and they leave other data out. So they don't include the people that stopped looking for jobs or the people that did have to get on government aid. And I think it only covers up to like 3 months of people searching for jobs. And they're also not indicating the people that have got hired at second jobs to make ends meet. That's the only thing I wanted to add on there. So be very wary, because I do know for a fact that with the CPI report, I think it's a CPI report, the metrics they used back in the 80s and 90s, they don't use anymore. So inflation is actually a lot higher than what we talked about. Jeannie, any quick thoughts about being in the USA and the jobs thing and that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, y'all already covered some great parts, but you were talking about the consumer price index, and I just wanted to share one tidbit, which is, I wanted comfort food, which is literally just ramen in a cup. So while I was in New York City during NFT NYC, I went to the local Korean supermarket and I bought
I
ramen.
love the Korean supermarket and all the Asian markets, by the way. They have the best pastries and the best snacks and just the best. They have everything there that you need. Everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, people used to, this is a whole nother topic, but at one point people were flipping turtle chips, if you ever had these, because they weren't available and they were sold out everywhere. And so literally people were selling them online in Korea and across the world because people couldn't get their hands on it. Like flipping sneakers or crypto or whatever.
It's a security. I'm going to call Gary. I'm calling Gary right now. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's security. But I just want to say in terms of the pricing, I was shocked. Like literally I walked out of there with like a $20 bill to buy like a literal small thing of kimchi and a small thing of ramen. And I was like, again, when we're going back to discussing whether or not it's a minimum wage job or, even someone who's white collar, that's still a crazy amount of money to spend on food. And this goes back to the whole conversation about, how people are eating healthy and, whether or not they can, spend money even on a Big Mac. And that's part of the consumer price index as well, in terms of, basic necessities in food, where you can't actually even afford those things. And it's just absolutely mind-boggling. And just one last point that I want to mention, because I have a lot of friends who are in the F&B and the retail and the food industry, and it's really, really, really difficult to retain employees because the wages are not great and in comparison to inflation, and the work is, not necessarily the easiest, and you don't have the nicest people. And especially after the pandemic, when restaurants were hit, there were restaurants that actually made it through, but then the ones who are, they're cutting corners or they're trying to,
Well, they weren't treated very well. I had Chef Gruel on the channel with me and Hotep many years ago. He actually started a nonprofit because he's a restaurant owner to give he raised a bunch of donations, so he was able to give restaurant workers $601 as a stimulus because the U.S. was only offering $600, so he beat them. And it just goes to show how important community is. But I just had to toss that in there. Also, too, Tom Crown is in the chat. You guys wish Tom a happy 4-year anniversary for his channel. Go subscribe to his channel. We are all Tom Crown. All right. All right. Let's get into the next story.
Hey, you stole that.
I did. I ripped George off. Gosh,
I
golly.
copyrighted that,
Did you?
Yeah. No.
Did you?
No,
Okay.
I didn't.
I don't know. We're all friends. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this next story. Where the heck is the stupid pop-ups coming? Okay. New York Commission votes to halt deposits at Capital One. This was pretty big news yesterday. And this is also why most of us Bitcoin and we are interested into decentralized protocols, because you cannot halt our deposits, our withdrawals, or anything. So New York City Banking Commission voted to halt deposits into the city bank accounts of Capital One and KeyBank. This is because lenders failed to submit plans on their efforts to root out discrimination. Hold up. These two banks outright refused to submit required policies. At the public hearing, the Banking Commission heard testimony from New Yorkers who have experienced discrimination in the process of opening or closing accounts. Tenants expressed that the predatory lending practices that jeopardize their rights and safe living conditions. Climate advocates condemned banks that have continued to lend billions of dollars for fossil fuel expansion despite having made net zero commitments. Members of the public spoke in favor of creating public bank that could provide banking services for city deposits, deploy that capital to better serve communities. In a statement, Capital One said the bank prohibits discrimination and harassment against any applicant, intern, associate, vendor, contract, customer, or client on the basis of projected characteristics. I believe this is known as redlining, and this is supposed to be illegal in the United States of America. However, it still happens. Has happened to my my daughter's father. He would get discriminated at all kinds of different places because he looks a little bit differently. So this stuff definitely does happen. Redlining is real. Sometimes you can walk into a bank and they can simply decide to not serve you for particular reasons. But I think that halting deposits? Is that what I said?
Yeah.
I feel that actually is making it, I feel like maybe the bank should be investigated and that halting deposits isn't the way to do things properly, because isn't that going to impact other people that are innocents in this whole entire show? George, give us your thoughts. What do you think? What's going on here?
I'm not familiar with what's covered there, but I will say this. This is the reason why we believe in self-custody in crypto, right? I mean, for this very reason, maybe not for discrimination, but there is discrimination towards crypto for sure. But this is why you don't want to trust your money with a centralized entity that can remove it anytime. They can shut down your account. They can basically halt your money and lock up your money forever. And this has been done since the beginning, right? So this is the reason why Bitcoin was created. We have a decentralized network that no one can shut down. No one can take your crypto as long as you have a self-custody wallet. Now, if you choose to leave your money in a bank or a centralized exchange and something bad happens, well, I mean, that happens all the time. A lot of people lose money that way, but this is a clear example where, hey, a decentralized network with self-custody wallet is much better option.
I definitely agree with you there. And again, operating in a true decentralized economy is a very hard concept for a lot of people because there's bad people and there's good people. And maybe a bad person thinks a good person is bad or vice versa. So it makes it very hard because we kind of have to put in human emotion to all this. And even if we do use AI or smart contracts, there's still a person behind that is still including their human bias. So it's a very interesting topic. I don't like reading what I read and have looked at the story yesterday. I still think it's kind of a disservice to people that are innocents that are caught in the crossfire. I felt that like this should have been handled a little bit differently because people are trying to use the bank service and they're obviously going to have problems. So the people that are doing the right thing, to me, it's absolutely stupid. Janey, give us your thoughts on this story if you have any.
Yeah. I mean, when I first saw it, I just saw the headline, and I followed this like from yesterday, and I kind of freaked out because Capital One is one of the banks that I do bank with, as well as other ones. So it's your money is in the bank, and again, we're talking about crypto and decentralization, but the fact that, like, I was reading up on the report, I think the number, I think it was seven. I'm looking at the article right now. It's 7.2 million for Capital One in terms of New York City deposits that they actually froze. I mean, this is not like $72 or $7,200, and they're asking to review what's happened. I mean, of course, it totally makes sense, but then obviously it's also taken some time for this to really come to light. So again, it comes down to the banks for me as well, in terms of, what are the checks and balances to make sure that our money is safe? Or, if you do bank with a centralized bank, can you ensure that your money is going to be, held to good practices? Or, do we go full on decentralized and, move all our money to digital assets? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider with all the banking situations that have had this happen this year, where where is your money safe? And even using things like Ledger or cold wallets, like how you actually connect to them, and what that looks like, or having public wallets like burn wallets or hot wallets versus something in cold storage and your seed phrase. I mean, there's a learning curve as well. So I think that a lot of people find it easier to bank with centralized banks, but then this is not giving anyone confidence in banking and also the government institution in terms of how they're going to navigate the situation going forward.
I kind of want to switch topics, but kind of be on the same page here too, Melina. So we know that Ledger had the drama with the recovery service that wasn't even launched yet. Everybody is absolutely losing their minds, and I get it. It's good to question and to but at the same time, I do think that Ledger recovery is a very important service that some people are going to need to have, because as Janey was talking about, who do you trust? The bank could easily freeze your deposits. They can confiscate your money. They can do whatever they want to do. You also mentioned, I think it was either George or Janey that mentioned that China, if they want to gaffle you up, they can go ahead and gaffle you up at any time. But at the same time, we do have these cold storage wallets like Ledger and Trezor. Both had some issues with them recently that were found out. But at the same time, most people are not capable enough to use cold storage yet. So a service like Recovery Ledger might be a good fit for people that are brand new into the industry that might need like a year or two to learn things. So Melina, your thoughts about banks, the bank stopping deposits, which impacted quite a few people. And then I guess people may be using crypto assets as a way to get to kind of combat that, but then also with the cold storage thing, because most people will lose all their money. And I don't think most people are responsible enough to do it yet. Soon though.
Yeah, I agree with you, Wendy. I like having both options with Ledger. I just think the way they came out was not the right thing, and sometimes, we talk a lot about NFTs and projects and these people and founders and whatnot. I always go back to, who is your community? Who's buying this, right? So at the very core, Ledger, people who buy Ledger is because they want to own, they want not your keys, not your crypto, right? They really vouch for that, and they want that. So I think that announcement kind of went south because it didn't match their audience, is what I personally think, but then I also see that other side. You see my girlfriend who comes into the space and is like, what do you mean there's no someone help me out there, right? So I see both sides of this, or like someone who, they get divorced, God forbid, and they have half the recovery phrase or whatnot. All these things are happening and possible. So I see both sides of it. What's scary about seeing these banks, I mean, it is happening in the US, but every bank, this is not the first bank that this has happened to this year. Every time I see this kind of thing, it freaks me out, because just 2 years ago, I realized that it's not like in the movies where I put money in and someone at the bank has this little box for me and is saving my money. I think when people start realizing that your money is just like an online number and then they're giving it to someone else or they're leveraging it to someone else, I think when people start understanding that is when they're probably going to choose crypto, right? But this is scary. And then the fact that they also they discriminated certain people, It just is mind-boggling. I keep thinking, are we in 2023? Are we back in 1955? But in all seriousness, I think we should look at this sort of news as like a red flag.
Also, to me, I think it's a learning opportunity for like content creators like myself and George and you ladies as well, is to educate our audience and say, hey, this stuff is real. Just because we live in the United States of America doesn't mean it can't happen. Like you might be one of the unlucky people that get caught in one of these crossfires or one of this insanity, which sucks. So it is important to, like me personally, when I first learned about Bitcoin, it forced me to learn about the history of money and how banks operate. I had no idea that they took my money and they loaned it out, as silly as that sounds, but most Americans and most people don't know that. So I think it's a good opportunity to remind you guys about risk reward. What risk do you have by keeping your money in a bank? What risk do you have by keeping your money in crypto on a cold storage device? What cold storage device to use? As always, paper wallets are the best, and there's different protocols that you can use to back those keys up properly, etc. I posted a wallet review with our tutorial paper wallet with my good friend Brooke Lacey. So it's just that. But anyways, you guys, we got to wrap up over here. I want everybody to go around the table, tell people where they can find you. We're going to get out of here because I got to go to the mall and return some jeans and get a delicious pretzel because it's Friday. I'm breaking my keto. George, tell everyone where they can find you. I'm sure they know where to find you though. And thank you for coming on today.
This was fun. I mean, yeah, it was fun. Love to come back. People can find me on Cryptosrus. We're all George.
We're all Jorge. Janey, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, you're really funny. First of all, again, thank you, Wendy, for having us. It was fun chopping it up and chatting. Would also love to come back at some point.
Of course, y'all have the link. Book whenever, once or twice a month. Cool on Fridays. I'm here.
Yeah, and then maybe we could celebrate, you breaking your keto, me breaking that keto every day because I inhale potato chips, as I mentioned, which is also an asset.
You hush. Don't talk about potato chips on this channel. Extra salt and salsa. I can't deal with you right now. Go ahead.
Sorry, kettle cooked chips. Okay, last one. But yeah, my name is Janey Park. You can find me Jumpstart Janey across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. As I mentioned, I am a Web3 content creator and a consultant, and also work in digital fashion and mainly share about that. And yes, let's go. I realize George and I are kind of matching in color, by the way. Totally
that was on purpose. Yeah.
And then you guys are wearing black, so it's like we got the fit memo.
Melina, go ahead and tell people.
Yeah, I love that. So you guys can all follow me at Girl in the Verse. My mission and vision for this brand is really to get more women here. I think the only way we can do that is if we have women like WendyO, Jumpstart Janey, myself, and we allow them to have a seat at the table. Like I said at the intro, I do crypto news updates, but I dumb it down. I make it fun. It's sort of like a Rick Mercer style. I did news for 10 years in Canada. I was a reporter, happily left. Now I do crypto news updates, but I'm a content creator. I talk about being a content creator. The struggle is real. We barely sleep. We're constantly posting.
Yeah.
Wendy knows the drill. So you can come and find me at Girl in the Verse on your favorite platform. I'm on every single social media app. So
awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, set alerts, follow these amazing people. And I have an NFT video dropping for y'all later, but it's going to be mostly about Bitcoin ordinals. And I'm going to be trolling the maxis because that's one of my favorite things to do. I am petty AF. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Everybody wave because YouTube lags. Bye.